Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Mattis and General Dunford, by way of background, I was one of some of our House Armed Services Committee members who, in 2011, voted against the Budget Control Act and its sequestration provisions that disproportionately cut national defense spending and so badly damaged America's national security. Now to the current date. Per the Congressional Budget Office, we face an $804 billion deficit this year, $12.5 trillion in total deficits over the next decade, and a total $33.8 trillion gross federal debt by 2028. Proverbs 22:7 warns us that, quote, the borrower is the slave of the lender, end quote. Similarly, I would submit, America's debt slowly but surely gives our creditors power over America. For emphasis, China, a geopolitical rival and perhaps a foe, is America's largest foreign creditor at $1.2 trillion. Here is our problem. If America's creditors simply stop loaning America more money, something they have every right to do, our federal government is immediately, the next day, insolvent and faces an immediate $800 billion shortfall. If this $800 billion shortfall is prorated equally across our $1.3 trillion discretionary budget, that translates into a devastating $400 billion cut to national defense immediately. In 2011, when America's gross federal debt was much less, at approximately $15 trillion, then Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Mike Muller testified in this very same room that, quote, the most significant threat to our national security is our debt, end quote. Similarly, in 2017, when America's gross federal debt was roughly $20 trillion, you, Secretary Mattis, confirmed at your Senate hearing that, quote, the greatest threat to our national security is our own federal debt, end quote. In the time that remains, will you please help the American people understand why you believe America's out-of-control deficit and exploding debt are threats to America's national security?
Well, Congressman, I think any nation that can't keep its fiscal house in order eventually cannot maintain its military power, hence the connection to the Department of Defense that concerns me so much. It's also why we put solvency and security as watchwords at the Pentagon, because we need solvency first. So we're aligned with you. The situation I face is a worsening security situation in the world. So then, even with that thesis I just mentioned, I come in asking for an awful lot of money. The point I would make is in 1985, we spent 5.7% of our GDP on national defense. It was in the 36 percentile during World War II. But 1985 was not a war year for us, and we were spending 5.7. What we are asking for in 2019 is 3.1%. So we believe America can afford survival, and I recognize the competing and very tough decisions on domestic spending, on health care, on defense, and I can only tell you that we will spend every dollar as wisely as we can. I don't have stress, Congressman. I create it. If I find someone who's getting artful with the money you've given us, that person will have to leave our ranks as we try to buy the time, security-wise, for you to put the fiscal situation back under proper order.
General Dunford, do you share that concern about our accumulated deficits and total debt at some point becoming or currently being a national security threat?
I do, Congressman. It really gets to my opening statement that what I said was we needed sufficient resources to the Department of Defense. We also needed that to be sustainable and predictable. And clearly on the path we're on, the sustainability and the predictability is at risk.
On an entirely different subject matter, Secretary Mattis, do you believe that people who are illegally in the United States should be allowed to take military service opportunities from American citizens and lawful immigrants?
I'm not quite sure, sir. Very bluntly, we need every qualified patriot we can get our hands on, but we do not support illegal activity in our recruiting. So I know at times we've had an awful lot of legal immigrants, children of those families join at a much higher rate than we do with native-born, believe it or not. So we would like to see the immigration system fixed so that we have legal immigrants coming into the country, because we recruit very well from them. They're overrepresented, sir, in our ranks.
Thank you, Secretary Mattis, General Dunford, and Mr. Chairman.